What's going on, everyone? Lullet here. I got my first credit card at the age of 18, and it's been almost 10 years since that time. At the same time, when it comes to credit cards, points, miles, rewards, the whole shebang, it's been closer to half of that period, and in that time I've gotten 40 plus credit cards and earned more than $100,000 in rewards overall. But there's 7 credit card facts I wish I knew in the beginning that I want to share here today, which could have allowed me to reap more value in general and help more folks overall. So with that, we'll get straight into it. Starting us off, the first one on this list is truly understanding the difference between different technical terms. For example, statement close date versus closing date versus last day of the billing cycle, etc. If you know the 3 items I just mentioned, you'll be like, hey, aren't they just the same thing? And yes, they are. But at the same time, in the beginning, I was such a stickler for just spending on the card. Let's say I spend $1, I would immediately pay that $1 off at that same moment, where a pending transaction would never even get to posted, and what I spent, I would pay off immediately. This sounds like a great habit because there was no concept of debt involved, but physically taking the time to log into the app or the online website to do this action was where a lot of time was spent, resulting, in hindsight, a total waste of time. If I combined the knowledge of technical terms with my conservative spending habits and everything around money, there could have been a better benefit overall, which really leads me to my second item. Credit score. It can make you, it can break you, depending on how you use it in the system from a financial perspective and your whole life and how you structure it. Credit score is one of the most important things, especially in America, to understand, learn, and utilize in such a way, if you can, to succeed even that much further. Not caring about these technical terms really meant that I wouldn't really understand credit card utilization, how that functions, how when, hey, let's say when the statement closes, you have X amount of balance, and if you divide that balance by your credit limit, you have this credit utilization percentage. Yet, because I was always paying off my card instantaneously, I always had such a high score, generally speaking, and because I had a high score, I was always at the top, so I never had that, hey, let's build up my credit and actually learn how this thing works. I was always at this peak of the mountain type of feeling, and I wish I knew more in general, but clearly I didn't. Had I known more about this aspect, I would be able to enter the realm of business credit cards that much sooner, as well as understand how credit and business can go in tandem overall that much more. And overall, understanding that credit mix where you have different types of credit related products, such as, let's say, auto loans, mortgages, medical loans, personal loans, versus purely just credit cards, would have changed my financial outlook as a whole. This next item relates to credit score, how I could have not just helped myself, but others as well. Your credit habits can help those around you. If you add someone as an authorized user to your account, they could inherit the fact that you have good habits with that account, and they're able to piggyback essentially on your credit habits, increasing their score through that relationship. Had I known this earlier, I could be able to help, let's say, a younger sibling of mine or my parents, or vice versa from my parents to my sibling. Also, you could have a baby that's age 0, and when they turn 18, they'd have 18 years of phenomenal credit. This fourth one's gonna sound like a true regret, but trust me, it's really not. It's something you can't plan for. It's kind of like falling in love, so hear me out with this one. I wish I knew I'd end up with this many credit cards and falling in love with the hobby, but it's just something that you can't really predict. And the reason I say this is because I would have had better planning, execution, a roadmap, and all these type of items around everything credit cards. So I just wish, man, if only I could know the future, I could have planned that much better. It's very similar to this YouTube channel. I love making these videos, but I never knew that I would be at this moment as a creator from a consumer and really didn't have a full-fledged years and years out plan similar to my credit card strategy. There was a particular year where I got 20 credit card approvals. Was it the optimal move? In the grand scheme, probably not. Am I happy I did it? In one way, yes, I took action and I actually went that far to actually execute upon said thinking. From a Chase 524 perspective, which is essentially saying for Chase credit cards, if you have 5 or more open accounts in the last 24 months, you'll be automatically denied. Getting 20 cards in 1 year wasn't going to help this case. Ask Sebi came out with a video back in the day where he talked about something known as credit card purgatory, where you're in this gardening phase of just kind of waiting and chilling around and waiting for you to be able to be approved for your next card. It may not sound like the biggest deal, but these next 3 items I'm going to talk about will allude to why it really mattered. Annual fees are okay. They're not a bad thing. They're not the worst thing in the world. They can actually be beneficial if you're getting more value than what you're putting in. In other words, if you have an annual fee of $95 where you're getting $500 in value, would you do it? And if that's a yes, then that's essentially the argument for annual fees. In the early part of my credit card journey, from a spending profile perspective, if I had to spend $0 and 1 penny, even 1 penny, I would think logically, why am I doing this? I was a very to the penny person, and in the grand scheme, now that I know better in hindsight, I'm more of an investor versus saver, but back then I was very meticulous about any type of spend whatsoever. It sounds like great logic, but saving never made anyone rich. Just some food for thought. Some cards have no annual fee, and some cards have heavy annual fees in the multiple hundreds of dollars. And regarding getting so many cards in a year and annual fees, this is what happened. I was in a position where the intro offer for a lot of cards, it was great in year 1, but in year 2, maybe longer term, it wouldn't really fit the best of my needs. In other words, I would be spending annual fees for years 2, 3, 4, and onwards if I didn't choose to cancel the card. Knowing this next point would have saved me a lot of headache when I was in this situation, and more importantly, allowed me to strategize everything related to credit cards that much better. Canceling your cards is not the only option. If you don't want a credit card, you don't need to only cancel it. There's something known as a product change. The terms around product changes and the rules that are behind it differ from bank to bank, lender to lender. A product change is essentially the ability for you to downgrade or upgrade a certain card, where, for example, let's say I had a card with an annual fee. If there's a downgrade path, a card that I can downgrade to, which let's say has $0 as an annual fee. This way, I would keep my credit intact from a credit score perspective, my credit with the lender, and overall not need to cancel this card, which may result in a negative credit score impact. Different banks and lenders have different rules when it comes to product changes, just something to know in general. That being said, it would also allow you to strategize in a certain fashion if maybe you want a certain card for a temporary amount of time, but later on you think that, hey, maybe I wouldn't want this, but what are my options, my exit opportunities? You would actually be able to decide that much further in advance. If this following point was significantly solidified since the beginning of my credit card journey, I would be sold in an instant since the beginning of everything. Cashback is not the only option when it comes to credit cards. You're able to transfer your points to airlines, hotels, rental car companies, and more. Depending on your credit card journey, you may already know this, but this is the point I want to stress regarding this item. I was genuinely afraid regarding everything transfer partners because, pun intended, it was a foreign concept to me in such a way that I felt that, hey, if I can have cash guaranteed in one facet, why would I ever attempt to do something that maybe I'm not so sure of how to use these points? If you read into this, I was operating out of a point of fear. I was afraid. And videos like Ask Sebi and videos from other huge YouTubers on the platform about credit cards really helped me understand more and just dig that much deeper into why maybe my points are better used instead of cash back for miles or points with certain programs, depending on how much value I'm trying to reap from it, where it'd be an advantageous situation. With that being said, I have my own version of a video where you get a step-by-step comparison between different situations regarding the same redemption for different types of points. And so I'll link that video somewhere over here. And with that, you know how it is. Thanks for coming to the end. Peace.